Pandemonium Reigns.
Hey, hello, hi, hola, aloha. Welcome to Pandemonium Reigns. I'm Dan. He's Mike. I'm pretty. He's sexy. Wow. I had somebody stop me the other day at church and said, do you have is it a bromance or do you have an infatuation with your co-host? And I was like, bro, you don't even know.
Don't even know.
It is a bromance. It is an infatuation. It's all of the above.
It runs deep.
I mean, just look at it. Just look at him. Okay. Just look at him. Still, are we still without a haircut?
No haircut, baby. I mean, look at this. Well, crap, you can't see it for the headphones. There we go.
Man, look at that. Look at that.
It's coming out, man. I'm
Party in the back, baby. Look at that.
We're talking about, when we get to talking about spring practice and things like that for college football in Tennessee, these Vols and everybody, it's going to be unleashed, son. That'll be like a year of no haircut for me. And I'm not cutting my hair.
We're going to have to start a Twitter account, Michael Walker's hair.
We can do that. We can absolutely do that.
Hey, tell the people, just give them a sneak peek. You don't have to tell them content or anything, but tell people like what's on deck, like what you're doing in addition to the Pandemonium Reigns podcast, audio version,
Absolutely.
YouTube version. Tell them what's up.
Absolutely. Looking at my other screen over here, I've currently got 1,300 words for you. Now, this is talking about, we're not doing an Orange Cast right now, but this is talking about the 2022 Tennessee Vols, the Vols since Hopple arrived, since Hendon Hooker arrived, those things, an appreciation post, if you will, things like that. So look for us in the written word spaces here in the next, I don't know. I'm hesitant to give you a time frame, but let's just say soon.
We tickle your ears on a regular basis, and Michael's in the process of tickling your eyes, tickling your eyelashes, grazing your eyeballs. I don't know.
There it is. It is.
Tickling and grazing. Hey, as he said, it's not an Orange Cast, so we're gonna talk playoffs a little bit. We're gonna recap some of the bowls, but we're mainly gonna talk Georgia and TCU. And I'm just here to tell you, the boys at Pandemonium Reigns are TCU against the world. Okay.
Yeah, and that flipped quickly, man. I don't want to think back to that day because it was a painful day. But when I think back to that day of TCU and Baylor, man, I was pulling so strongly for Baylor. We were looking for them to again, not an Orange Cast, but to open up the door for Tennessee to creep into that top four. Of course, Tennessee didn't hold up their end of that bargain either. But now, my gosh, how the turntables, if you will. Michael Scott in the house. Go TCU, purple or nothing. Max Dugan or nothing.
Yeah.
Give me all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we further tap into TCU, we'll be tapping into TCU Michigan. And I just want to say, you've got people out there saying, man, this is the perfect season on why we need an 8-12 team playoff. I have such an opposing argument. I think if this is an indicator, this season is a perfect indicator of why 4 is, the sweet spot. It should be hard to get into the playoffs. And TCU is showing if you take care of business,
you're going to get in.
You take care of business. And when you don't take care of business, you lose. You lose
when you don't take care of business, you're USC.
Oh, I was actually kind of pointing the finger at us, but
that too.
Chugga.
Hey, they had an easier path than Tennessee had. Let's just say that.
Yeah, for sure. You don't get to lose to Utah twice. You don't get to that's USC's case. You don't get to have a blowout loss in Tennessee's case. You don't have to have 2 close losses in Bama's case. It just doesn't work.
Right.
It's not okay. We should not be rewarding losses. Everybody should deserve a chance at the title.
Yeah, if you want to continue the trend of Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State playoffs, expand it. All those teams would have been in, and who knows what would have happened. They would probably all be in the second round if we had multiple rounds and not just 4 teams. This, like you said, this is the perfect. My gosh, when expansion is on deck, this is the perfect season against it in my book. Look at what it took, and we'll get into it. Look at what it took for TCU to beat Michigan. Michigan played the ugliest game of their season.
Yeah.
And and I think you can even look at scheduling, how their schedule was 1, 2, 3 games tops. They handle their conference slate. Their out of conference was pathetic. Let's not forget that they canceled a game with UCLA. There was that game did not happen. It was supposed to. And I don't think it sets you up well for playoff contention when you have that easy of a path in.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, if you want to continue with the same 4, 5, 6 teams, let's expand it. Tennessee would have got in. I'm good with that. I don't want it, but I'll be okay with it.
For sure. Okay, so let's go ahead and tap into this because you said something that I think a lot of people are saying, and I don't know if it's that I disagree or that I'm seeing it differently. People are saying Michigan did not play its best game. I think there's some truth to that, but I think TCU set the tone from start to finish. And they're like, you guys are getting labeled as physical and we're getting labeled as Cinderella. Well, Cinderella's about to take the slipper off and slap you across the mouth. I think Michigan got punked. You said that all game while we were texting. You said that, and I couldn't agree more. They got bullied, and I don't know if that Michigan wasn't ready for it, or I don't know. What I do know is TCU was like, "Listen, we're not Cinderella. We're not wearing glass slippers. These are work boots," and right in the mouth, man. From start to finish, they were jumping off the ball. They were physical. They had violent hands on the defensive line. I mean, they were laying wood. So I mean, to say that Michigan didn't play a good game, whatever.
And really, I think and not to sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
But
you're good.
But I think that Michigan not playing a good game can kind of be. Yeah, their defense was taking advantage. TCU took advantage of their defense. They found ways to move the ball, whether it was driving the ball or whether it was hitting a big play. They found ways to move the ball, no doubt there. They scored quick. They matched scores with Michigan when Michigan was attempting to come back. But if talking about Michigan not playing a good game, that falls so much on J.J. McCarthy with those interceptions that he threw.
Yeah,
They also had a fumble. You can't do those things in those moments. I also, I think it was actually a dual-edged sword for Michigan, but they had to get out of their game plan. They had to get away from strictly running the ball because of the way the game was playing out and the turnovers. But when they went away from their run early, thinking about the first drive when they had it 4th and goal and they went for it, they did not take the points. They attempted, I think, the Philly special to try to score on, and it got
cute. Yeah,
they got cute, got blown up. That's not who they are, but I think the positive for Michigan in that was that they kind of cut it loose there for a while. They had to play with their hair on fire, and they made a very strong run to bring this game back. Just fell short. But again, I think there's positives and negatives to them having to get out of probably what they game planned and wanted to do, what they've done all year.
Sure. I want to call out a little bit of the play calling. They got into that. I want to say it was 3rd and goal. It might have even been 2nd and goal. I'm not sure. Either way, TCU stuffed it. Michigan ran a fullback dive in that scenario, and I typically don't hate that, but I don't think you've done that all year,
right?
So a couple of reasons I don't like that. One, you haven't been doing that. Two, the fullback just doesn't have an opportunity to gain momentum. I'd much rather, if you're going to do that, I'd much rather you just sneak it in, QB sneak.
Yep.
And third thing, why not turn around and just hand it to Edwards? I don't. It's not like he's finesse. I mean, dude's physical. I mean, he's got a decent frame on him. Anyway, so some sus behind the Michigan play calling and decision making, and and there's some debate on. You and I think disagree on one of their touchdown receptions or lack thereof touchdown receptions. Yeah. Either way, I think TCU said we're not the one that's going to get bullied. It's going to be you.
Yeah.
And which is just, you and I were talking about this yesterday. The whole Sonny Dykes thing. mentioned Sonny Dykes, who bottomed out at Cal. Right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a fantastic story that I don't think is getting enough credit. How many I can count on one hand how many times it's been mentioned that he's in his first year, right?
Yeah.
At TCU, where he's come from, kind of what he's achieved, the successor of Derek Dooley at LA Tech, right?
Huge shoes to fill.
And we're not minimizing him. It's just
Right.
What I'm saying is it's just not getting enough enough chatter, enough buzz. I've heard it one time. So go Sonny.
Yeah, man. Stoked for him. Very, very big turnaround for him. I do think, we talked about this. I talked about with you, Cal being a tough place to win just because you're kind of like the third little bro in that state. Yeah, it's a huge state with a lot of talent, but everybody poaches California much like they do Florida, Georgia, all the states that are just loaded with talent. It gets poached very hard, but talent in Texas is different. He has capitalized on it.
Sure.
He did a good job. They talked about, I think, during their game with Michigan, how he recruited Quentin Johnston back to TCU when there was a coaching change, going from Gary Patterson, who is through and through TCU, or was through and through TCU. That's huge shoes to fill there. What a job he's done. Like you said, he's still fairly young. He could do this for another long time. I think he's in his early 50s, I saw. So, he could be there.
I thought he was older than that.
Me too. I did too. That's one thing that surprised me when looking into him, but he could do this for another long time. And heck, I hope he does. It's been a nice revival for him, and got no issue with TCU out there.
Sure. And he's tearing up the transfer portal. Like, he's all over that puppy. And he's got to compete in the national championship. And he's still, he just got Trey Sanders. I think that's only going to further benefit a school like TCU, who sits in that Fort Worth, Dallas area, because the transfer portal is, my gosh, it is swarming and changing this game that we love. And I think what you're going to see, because you have a ton of talent out of that area, and they're going off to the Alabamas, to the Miamis, to the Floridas, all over the country, kind of as you said or highlighted just a minute ago, and they're going to get homesick. And I think TCU is going to be the benefactor of that.
Yep.
So, think about this. They are the best school in the state of Texas.
It's wild. Texas A&M I'm picking on them because it's easy to do this year. They've given us so many things to pick on them for.
Yeah.
But they had this monster effort in recruiting, this otherworldly class where they just usurped everyone for a year. Now they're losing those guys, but they added that talent on top of talent that was already there. It's not like Jimbo's early in his tenure at Texas A&M. He added that to what he already had.
Yeah. And
TCU, like you said, is the best team in that state. Texas has struggled for a long time to get it going. I just don't know anymore what's up there. But again, his first year, he's pulling all the transfers right now. They're going to see a massive recruiting bump in general, I would think, from this season. Like you said, they're the best team in that state right now.
More playoff wins than Lincoln Riley during his time at Oklahoma. Think about it.
Love to see it.
Golf clap. So here's my question. As we move forward, can TCU continue to play that physical thing, or carry that physical match into this national championship against the pups? Listen, okay, if you're listening and you're a Georgia fan, just either just put your seatbelt on, all right, or turn us off, because we're not happy that you were there. I think every other person in this world who is not a Georgia fan is not happy that you were there, and you can bask in it's, if you don't love us, you hate them. Okay, so whatever you want to. I don't care. If you're a Georgia fan, turn us off for all I care. So can the Horned Frogs continue to bring that physicality to a team like Georgia, right? Who I don't know if I'm going to say they're bigger, stronger, faster, because Michigan had, Harbaugh has recruited so well over the years. And you're talking about the best offensive line in college football, at least according to, people who vote for award winners, back-to-back seasons. And you got some studs on that D line for Michigan.
Yep.
So I'm not dismissing, those guys by any means. All that said, can TCU do it again? And what's it going to take for a TCU to gosh, I hate to say it, pull off an upset, right? It's a 12.5 point spread at this moment.
Yeah. And we were talking before we hit record that it has trickled down from at least 13.5, if not 14.5. So still just a huge number for a national championship game. Don't know how far you'd have to look back in the playoffs or a national championship to find a spread that long. But it's probably a few years at this point, because this again, they're proving that they're not Cinderella, your storybook Cinderella, but that's how they're thought of, and Vegas proves that with this spread. So what it would take, they have to play another physical game, more so probably than they did against Michigan,
Sure.
if not just as much. I said this about Ohio State, and Ohio State did way, way more than I thought they would do against Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
But you better be throwing the ball before your guys are out of breaks, throwing them open, throwing with extreme anticipation. He's got to use his legs. Not, if he can pick up yards, move the chains with his legs, absolutely do that. That'll be harder in this game than any game that they've faced. But you got to stay alive in the ways that Bryce Young has done against Georgia, that other Alabama quarterbacks have done against Georgia, that C.J. Stroud did a valiant effort of doing against Georgia. You got to stay alive, keep your eyes downfield, because even a secondary and a defense like Georgia's can only cover a guy for so long. I mean, that's just almost scientific at this point. They're as good as you're going to find, but you got to keep yourself alive, extend plays, and again, you better have extreme anticipation for where you're going to go with the ball, or what you're going to get, because they're going to do a great job of disguising it, and you have to be, that ball has to be out by the time they're breaking, or again, if you've kept the play alive, you got to continue to do that and make those big plays.
Yeah, I've got 2 keys for TCU just kind of off the cuff, and they're almost one and the same. TCU's offensive line is going to have their best game thus far.
Absolutely.
Second, when Georgia blitzes, you need to make them pay for it. You need to constantly make them regret blitzing, and you need to put them in position to say, you're going to have to generate pressure with 4. When you send more than 4, we are going to make you pay for it. I want you to send more than 4. I want that to be the narrative, the plot throughout this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They have to, as just in a matter of split seconds, identify where the pressure's coming from, make Georgia just make them rush 4, expose any weakness that a blitz may present. Whether it's slipping a tight end up the field if it comes from a linebacker, or just hitting something quick from the direction that the blitz came. Because Lord knows Georgia is as creative as anyone with how they disguise those blitzes, where they bring them from. Yeah. They're not afraid to do so because of the talent that they have at every position, but especially on the back end. So you got to find a way to make them pay for it. You got to, again, this is basic, like we talked about with Tennessee and Clemson. We previewed that, but you've got to win your early downs. You cannot be caught in a lot of second and third, 10 plus, minimize your sacks. I think I saw that Michigan only got Duggan actually sacked 1 time. So, you got to limit that. Lord knows Georgia's going to get theirs because that's who they are.
Yeah.
So you just have to limit that as much as you absolutely can.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think that a quick game is enough for TCU to run and beat Georgia. I think you need to run quick game. I think you need to find deep balls. I think you need to win on misdirections, which eye candy is what got Michigan beat in some places. With some of the stuff they drew up. You have a serious mismatch advantage in Johnston. I mean, he's just Georgia. Listen, their secondary is probably the best you'll find in the country, right?
Yeah.
But they don't have a corner or defensive player that tall or that good enough, I guess I should say, to continually handle this guy one-on-one.
Right.
I expect him to be doubled throughout the night.
Yeah.
Right?
Convert what Georgia did against Tennessee, Jalen Hyatt, the way that they stacked their formations and their alignment. That's probably what they're going to do, except it'll be probably more on the outside in Johnson's case versus the way that Hyatt is utilized in Tennessee's offense. So expect that. Find other guys. Find out who can win other matchups. I think, what surprised me somewhat against in the Georgia and Ohio State game is that Kamari Lassiter was picked on a little bit. Harrison got his when he was in the game before he got knocked out of that game. He got his. He made a statement in that game. So, whether Ringo is on Johnson at all times or whatever they do, can you pick on Lassiter? Do you have someone that can win there? I know you don't have a Marvin Harrison Jr. and an Emeka Egbuka or a Jackson Smith and Jigba, but who are your second and third guys that can capitalize if they put multiple eyes, multiple dudes Johnston's direction? Because I think they'll have to.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that Georgia's going to do that, though. I think Kirby's going to say, I believe that my dudes are still better than your dudes. And I think they will assign Ringo to Johnston until they can't. say, hey, main coverage, it's you, man. We got you.
Yeah.
We trust you. I think Ringo's solid. I don't know if he consistently can do it though.
Yeah.
Please don't prove me wrong. I mean, what a narrative. I know I'm kind of jumping ship here. What a cool story it's going to be if TCU is hoisting the trophy. I mean, especially, and again, wow, I've just gone off in the left field here. Especially with Texas and Oklahoma on a departing ship out of this conference. TCU's like, what? Okay, bye-bye. I mean, right? I mean, they might even be able, you might even have enough equity to say that now, like, hey, we're in the national championship. Texas, you haven't sniffed this since 05. Oklahoma, you haven't sniffed this since, help me, 01?
I mean,
2000?
Yeah, I mean, they've made runs, but they've been whipped in the first round every time except for the 2017 Rose Bowl against Georgia. They gave them a strong run, but that was Georgia at the beginning of what they've been doing here.
Yeah.
And they haven't been competitive in a playoff game since.
It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, and if I'm TCU, especially if I'm holding up the trophy on Monday night, I'm going home to my laptop and I'm emailing the administration at Texas and Oklahoma, and hey, y'all have fun. We got a trophy on our shelf. Y'all have fun with that conference. So
absolutely.
Hey, let's talk Georgia Ohio State a little bit as we continue to actually talk about the Natty. Man, what a performance from Ohio State.
Absolutely.
If you were one of those guys who said Ohio State didn't deserve to be there, yada, yada, I think you have an argument just because of they hadn't done much. The resume wasn't all that great in order to get there. But as far as, being one of the best teams in college football, I think they showed that. CJ Stroud played, my gosh, his best college football game ever. I mean, where has that been his career? Is what I want to know.
I mean, there's been times in his career where I've just been wowed by the placement, what he can do as far as ball placement, his touch and accuracy at times.
Mm-hmm.
But in those moments, they're not playing Georgia in those moments. They're not playing a top 5 team usually in those moments. I mean, he is not beaten as a starting quarterback. He's not beaten Michigan. So where has that been from him? Indeed, I could not echo that enough. Stetson had a fine game against Ohio State. I mean, he wasn't as good as CJ, frankly, but he was good enough, obviously, for them to win. That's just who he is, I mean, he obviously did fine. As I get another phone call in the middle of that was awesome. But CJ Stroud was the best. He was the best quarterback in this first round of playoffs. Again, elevating to a level of consistency and just. I mean, he did things. He put it all together in the biggest game of his career. And I was just super impressed with him, with Harrison. Egbuka made plays. They couldn't do much running, as much as I'm sure they wanted to running. Stroud actually ran more than you'll see him run, and that's both down the field and keeping plays alive before he throws the ball. Just wowed by what they did.
Yeah, you know what? That's an excellent point. Talking about him being the best quarterback in the playoff thus far. I don't know about Stetson's numbers, but I'm glancing here at Duggan, and it certainly wasn't McCarthy. Duggan was 14 for 29, so a hair over 50%. 225 to that's a hair over 50%.
14 and 28 would be 50 though.
Right. So he's math. Okay.
My bad.
No, yeah. Thank you. 2 scores, 2 picks. So, not great, especially in this day and age of college football. Had you asked me these numbers 15, 20 years ago, but oh my gosh, what a day. Yeah. But he did that. I will say this: did that without Miller, but in stepped this Amari Demarcado. Is that French? Is that Italian? Not sure. Again, wasn't McCarthy. Not sure about Stetson's numbers, but I'm not going to sit here and say Stetson had a great night.
Yeah. I mean, his ball placement was a little iffy. His decision making was a tad iffy. He did have the one interception, and I think that's kind of why I say CJ was the best quarterback in the first round. I mean, Stetson bested him by 50 yards. They both had the same completions percentage at 23 of 34. Stetson had 50 more yards, but what CJ did compared to what the guys around Stetson did. Not to discredit him, I'm just saying in that first round, CJ was just massively impressive.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, so I would say, best quarterback in the playoff. And as I'm glancing at this, I think what jumps off to me is what Ohio State did to Georgia's ground game. I mean, it was only 135 yards on 26 carries. Now, I know that is factoring in, sacks or whatnot against Stetson. McIntosh 5 for 70, Edwards 8 for 56, Milton 3 for 26. Those are just odd numbers. That was obviously definitely by committee. How is that 135? Man, just glancing.
Yeah, right.
That. Goodness gracious. So anyway, what a performance by Stroud. Hate to see that end for Ohio State the way that it did. And I just want to kind of travel down this Ohio State road for a second. If you're out there saying that Ryan Day can't get it done, I think you're an idiot.
Oh yeah,
because he almost did. I against Georgia.
Yeah,
best team in the country, took them to the wire.
Yeah,
on a terrible missed field goal. I mean, what more could you have asked of CJ Stroud? That receiving unit, I don't know. I think that I've heard that probably 1,000 times since that game has been played. Ryan Day can't get it done. I think that's an idiotic statement.
Yeah, and it's easy to say that because Urban Meyer did get it done, and then he left like he does. In steps Ryan Day, and they've had some moments here and there. They didn't lose to Michigan for so long until Ryan Day took over and CJ Stroud was in at quarterback. It's easy to look at those things and say that.
Yeah.
In every college game, almost in every competitive college football game, it's so easy to find little moments like play calling, when you got conservative, did you take your foot off the gas, things like that. Maybe they should have made a stronger push for a touchdown or to make that a more makeable field goal there at the end. But I'm scared to put the ball in the air against Georgia's defense when I have a makeable and a viable field goal available. Why take your chances? I mean, he made that kick earlier in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, it's easy to say those things about Ryan Day.
Yeah.
And sure, they've shown some weaknesses that they didn't necessarily show under Urban or earlier in Ryan Day's career when Urban's talent was still in the place there. But that's an easy thing to say, and I don't necessarily buy it either. He took steps to discredit and disvalue those statements in that game that did nothing but to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's going to be more difficult for Ryan Day and Ohio State going forward because you're losing CJ Stroud. I mean, he is obvious. I mean, he was 23 for 34 against Georgia.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, his receivers. Yeah, you're right. But look at his ball placement. I mean, that was spectacular.
Yeah. And I've talked about it, but just everyone doesn't stay alive to make those throws the way he did in that game.
Oh, and yeah, for sure.
There's a reason, when Georgia has lost to Alabama, when they've lost games, there's a reason that you see quarterbacks be able to do that, because if you're a statue back there, I just don't think that's the way to go against these Georgia defenses that we've seen, or for that matter, any of these elite defenses that we've seen. You need that, and that's why you've seen it. It's the cream has risen to the top. It's amazing what he did.
Yeah, for sure. So going forward, you're losing Stroud. You don't really know what's going to be behind him, and the Big Ten is on the verge of getting rid of divisions. And I mean, so if they can get, of course, they haven't done it in 2 years, but if they can get to Indianapolis, you're facing an Illinois, you're facing a Wisconsin, just a not good West Division, but they're going to be getting rid of that. So you could be having a rematch with a Michigan or a Penn State of something of that nature. So that's going to be more difficult for them going forward. But to say that they can't get it done, that's just idiotic. I mean, I don't. Stupid.
Yeah.
So, any other comments there on Ohio State? Anything else going forward there that you want to touch on? Hang on. Let me set you up something. Would the presence of Jackson Smith and Jigba had made a difference?
Man, I have to think so, because if Marvin Harrison goes out at that point, you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba and Emeka Egbuka. You've got 2 more targets where you may have had 3 earlier. But again, I think, just one more guy is huge for them, especially a guy as good as Jackson Smith and Jigba has been. I think that could have made a difference for them. Hate to see a good player like him have an injury marred season. I know it was questionable on if he could have played in this game. It would have made a difference to me for sure.
Yeah, I could see that because I think you just at least have to account for his presence, even though he's not 100%. Because Georgia, or excuse me, because Georgia's not really going to know what he's capable of and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, you at least got a third piece, right?
Yeah,
that you're looking at, which brings me to the conversation of the national championship in the presence of Darnell Washington. I think the absence of him is actually a big, big factor for Georgia and TCU, because there's just so many different things you can do with him when he's on the field. You don't know when he's on the field if they're going to line it up and running at you, because he's such a big body that he can run block, he can pass protect, and he can get downfield and catch balls. So good for TCU in that department. I mean,
yeah.
I've heard a couple of Georgia fans. Oh, it does. I don't think it matters. I disagree. Just because,
And I've even heard that he could be back, but I agree. If he's out, that is big because of his stature, if
sure,
nothing else. All their receivers block well. Brock Bowers and their tight ends certainly block well, but they're not all 6'7", 250. They're not all
sure,
a sixth offensive lineman out there.
sure.
Maybe they do block well, but again, they're not the size of Darnell Washington.
To dumb it down elementary wise, I just think it becomes a little more predictable in what they're going to do in on their play calling as far as personnel and who is on the field. So with that said, I've heard Georgia fans saying, "Man, I hope they run that 3-3-5 stack. We'll run it right." That's exactly what JJ McCarthy said. It's exactly what he said. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. The thing with the 3-3-5 stack, I've heard people say it's the same as a 4-2-5, the same as a nickel. No, it's not. 3 down linemen, 3 backers, 5 defensive backs, specifically, I believe 3 safeties. The thing about the 3-3-5 is you don't really know where the pressure's coming from, and they disguise it really well. Okay, and if you don't have a Darnell Washington on the field, I'm not saying it's a difference maker. I'm just saying I think it's not even necessarily an advantage TCU. I just think it helps them out, a little bit. But to sit here and say, man, I hope you. Teams have been saying this against. Hey, I hope you run that 3-3-5 stake and you lost.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think if you're Georgia and you're saying that, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I know we've got listeners out there. I know they're Georgia fans and that have said this. I think that is an idiotic statement.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, not only has everyone said it, but Michigan no doubt said it. They were licking their chops, and early in that game, when Donovan Edwards broke that 50-yarder or what have you, it looked like it was going to cost TCU. I was of the opinion at that time that Michigan was going to run wild because it's what they had done,
sure,
and because I have these ideas and these assumptions about about a 3-3-5 as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I did some digging. You can look at the game preview and see that Georgia allows 77 rush yards. TCU allows on average 149.5. Those numbers are up just a little bit after the first round. I don't know that those are updated based on what I found.
Mm-hmm.
But TCU's defense was kind of a mixed bag on the year. I looked at their schedule, the games that they played. Really, the first time that they got, if you will, was against Kansas. In that game, that's when Jalen Daniels went down for the first time. That's when the backup Bean came in for Kansas, and they passed the ball all over them. 351 yards, 189 on the ground, and 5 yards per carry. That's the first game, which was their fifth game of the year. They give up they give up an even 5 yards per carry. Mm-hmm. They did that a couple more times on the year. And they cannot do that. I mean, for them to do that, that is just the ultimate recipe for disaster. But if you go in with the, thinking that you've got them right where you want them because of what they run and who they are, that you're setting yourself up for an upset.
Agreed. And going back to that Kansas game, you've now got, when Daniels goes down, you've got a TCU team changing their game plan on the fly.
Exactly.
You're not going to sit there. You're not. Listen, I played this game and I did play at the collegiate level. You're not going to sit there and tell me that they're in game week prepping for backup quarterback. No, they're not, because the Heisman Trophy was being attached to Jaden Daniels' name at that time. They're saying, oh,
Yep.
he's going to find himself in New York. They were planning for Jaden Daniels, and then comes Bean, a totally different type of quarterback, right? Okay, so I'm not here for that. That's not going to cut it.
Now, there were games along their schedule throughout the year where they may have given up an ugly number of rush yards, but a lot of times as well, it was under four yards per carry, 3.5, 3.7. They'll have to stick to that realm to keep this a competitive game, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you go in just with that mindset, and I don't think for a second that Kirby will allow that. I wouldn't be totally shocked, because that's just, arrogance is a real thing. Pride's a real thing with especially with athletes like these players are. It could pop in, but I do think Kirby will say, look at what people have been saying about them, but look at what they've turned around and done to those teams. So don't get caught up in that.
Yeah.
They better figure out a way. Georgia needs to ensure that they can run the ball, I think, for them to have success. But knowing them, they may be able to do that.
Yeah. And something else I want to point out is TCU just went through the Big 12 slate, which I think from top to bottom was probably the best conference in college football. I mean, your worst team, again, I think we mentioned this on a previous show, that your worst team was Iowa State, and they were solid.
Yeah.
Are you going to convince me that the bottom half of the SEC is going to beat the bottom half of the Big 12? Are you telling me that Vanderbilt's going to beat Iowa State? I don't think so. Are you telling me that Kentucky is going to beat an Oklahoma State? They just got blanked by Iowa. I don't think so.
Gosh. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't either.
Maybe with Will Levis. I mean, but anyway, I'm not buying that at this point. So it's going to be fun to watch. Monday's going to be, I just hope it's fun. Please, God, let it be fun. Right.
Hey, let me make this request again. I asked when we orange casted previewing the Orange Bowl with Tennessee and Clemson, when we talked about, I believe, the first round playoff games, I was asking for vintage games, for good games. Give me that, man. Give me something that looks like round one of these playoffs, and I'll go to sleep a happy man.
Unless it's a Georgia win.
There you go. I wasn't going to say it, but I'll take it.
I can't do that narrative. Oh my gosh, the greatest playoffs ever, and Georgia won it. Shut up. Gosh, if I get barked at one more time, goodness.
Dan's going to jail.
I'm going to jail.
That's what I heard.
I'm going to jail. That's what I heard. All right, let's get into predictions. Let's get into scores. Spread is sitting at 12.5. Over under is at 62.5. I hope that over under is just blown out of the water.
Oh yeah.
Couple things before I set you up for your predictions and whatnot. Points per game, Georgia at 39.4, TCU at 41.1. Points allowed per game, 25 for TCU, 12.8 for Georgia. Somehow they have managed an arguably better defense than that iconic one last year. Yards passing per game. I'm getting a phone call. That's Rocky Top in the background that you're hearing. Yards passing per game, 269 for TCU, 293 for Georgia. Rushing, 204 for TCU, 201 for Georgia. Yards allowed, this is where it gets interesting, because it's 385 for TCU and 292 for Georgia. So there's some numbers for you. What say you, my guy?
I'm going to be impacted and have those round one playoff games on my mind when I say this. I'm gonna say that Georgia wins, just because it's hard for me to still, despite what TCU's done, all the things, Ohio State pushing Georgia, it's still just hard for me to see Georgia taken advantage of in their defense again. Should be an excellent game plan from both staffs. They should know what, if anything, will work and be willing to adapt, willing to throw it all out there. It is the national freaking championship. Yeah. But with that said, with what I have in mind for this game, I'm going to say Georgia does not cover. They do win. I'm going to say Georgia 44, TCU 37.
34-27. Wow.
No, 44-37. Sorry.
44-37. Okay. Wow. Man, my ears. My bad. And you're in my ears. Good. Like literally. There's nobody else has my ears right now. 44-37. Oh gosh, man. I was angry New Year's Eve after that Ohio State missed field goal. I will be so angry after that. I've been wrong a lot. I was wrong about the Orange Bowl. Gladly. I said going into the playoffs, be surprised if Ohio State pulls off the upset, which they almost did. Don't be surprised if TCU does. So I felt like I was right about that, but a little taken back by that Ohio State game. I'm going to say that Ohio State put some things on film for TCU to say, "Oh, okay, all right. I think we can. I think we can. I think we can play that game. I think we can do that." However, I don't know that it will matter. I think Georgia is that good. I think we're looking at like a 45 Georgia, 28-31, something like that, TCU. I'm going to say Georgia wins. I'm going to say Georgia covers. Please, I've been wrong so much. I would love in my dearest of hearts to continue that trend. But I do think Georgia is going to be back-to-back national champions. And I hope that Sonny Dykes is listening to this and he's, hey guys, nobody, them boys in the South don't believe you can get it done. Let's show them what Texas ball is all about. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't even know where he's from. I don't know if he talks like that. I couldn't tell you. That's beside the point. So, yeah, I'll take Georgia. Unfortunately. So, just a couple things before we land this plane, real quick. Let's just recap a few of the bowls. Unless you have anything else on TCU Georgia.
I do not.
Okay, well, go Frogs. The hitting a frog. Let it rip, baby. Have you seen how angry former players are for the Southern Cal Trojans? One in specific, Lindell White, he
No, I have not.
straight cussed out Lincoln Riley and said, "You have brought that no effort defense, that MO of you're just not going to do it to LA." And dude, he was, go search it, man.
I will.
It's
I will
it's fun.
search it. But just off the dome, I would say to Lindell, what has USC done before this that was better since you left town?
Yeah. That was
since you left town.
Yeah.
I mean, Lane left y'all in a bad spot. Helton never got it done. What in the world was better about that than this? So freaking happy to see Tulane pull that out. What a freaking job that was. I think they won 2 games a year ago is what I heard. Don't know if I heard that correctly.
Yeah.
Just absolutely phenomenal coaching job by those players. I mean, just love to see it. Could not love it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Tulane, I mean, they're good. You lost to a really good, you lost to a team that beat your Big 12 champion. I mean, and they just kept scoring. And I learned listening to Josh Pate this week that Georgia Tech actually had Fritz. They had him. But Fritz wanted to finish coaching the year, and Georgia Tech was not willing to wait.
Oh, my word. What are you doing? What is you doing?
They were not willing to wait. So, anyway, that's all I wanted to say about USC. And you took the point right out of my mouth. Where have you been? I mean, you have a guy who just brought you a Heisman Trophy. You were an inch away from the playoffs, right? Against a Utah team who back-to-back Rose Bowl appearances. I mean, golly. If I'm Lindell White, I you know what? Sorry, Lincoln. Shouldn't have said that. Here's some money. Go get yourself a D coordinator, right? Go get you somebody who can get it done. I will say though that California has not been putting out elite talent in the trenches lately. So I think they need to tap into the portal for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And their brand is picking up steam fast. Just simply due to the point that you just made. Like, where have you been?
Yeah,
I don't know that a move to the Big Ten is actually going to help you in that department. Very curious to see how that's going to shake out, because I think California kids are going to want to play in their home state, and now you're going to send them to Wisconsin, to Michigan, to Ohio, across the country, to New Jersey.
Have fun.
I mean, I don't, blows my mind. Anyway, so as we transition, again, USC, where have you been? I just want to talk Penn State for a minute.
Man.
Just for a minute. 14-point win over Utah, who lost Cam Rising again in the Rose Bowl, back-to-back appearances in the Rose Bowl, back-to-back appearances where he goes down. Hate that for that kid. I have heard people say, mostly on Twitter, here's my thing at night. I lay down, I scroll Twitter, and I just like to search different things. And people saying after that Rose Bowl appearance, Penn State will forever be mediocre, that they will never be back. I'm here to tell you that they've never really left.
Yeah.
I don't know what more you want out of them. They are in an incredibly tough division, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know what more you want out of these guys. And I will say, hey, but before I forget, man, Clifford had his best game of his career.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So good for him to go out that way. And I believe they've got a really good one behind him. 5 stars.
That sounds right, but I can't think of the name.
Guys, we are not here for inside sources. We are here just to give our opinion.
Exactly.
You won the Rose Bowl. The most beloved. I mean, when so Josh Pate used this language on his last show of when you cut open college football, what bleeds out. I think when you cut college football open, I don't think Bryce Young bleeds out. This was him saying this. I agree with you. I don't think your big names, your Tim Tebow's bleed out. I think things like the Rose Bowl bleed out. I think things like Sean Clifford being waved off into the sunset after a up and down career being there for 17 years. I think that's what bleeds out. You just won the Rose Bowl against a team that was there last year. I don't think Penn State has actually ever left. They went through, a bit of a. Actually, let me word it this way. Think about what schools like Tennessee has been through, and you just escaped. You found a way to collect 200 and pass by the jail cell. I'm using Monopoly reference here. After your famous head coach was caught in the scandal of scandals, right? Basically sneaking things under the rug or not reporting. I mean, say what you want to, and you came out above it with your head above water.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you did hire Bill O'Brien, and it wasn't a great tenure, but it wasn't bad.
Boy, it stabilized things to set you up for where you're at now.
Right. So I think if I'm a Penn State fan, I think you need to chill out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, this is like, again, just a perfect little look into where the sport, where society is at, because it's like if you're not winning at all, if you're not taking that step, because here's the way that logic works in society. Oh, you won the Rose Bowl. You had a really nice season. Now, if you don't win the playoff next year, did you do anything? That's the way our society functions. Like the sport and society surrounding the sport, that's the way it functions. Yeah. That's the reason that coaches get fired off of, a year or two that are down. There is no patience. There is, it's just rash decisions. That's all the sport is. That's all it's become. Mm-hmm. Celebrate that win.
Yeah.
Like you said, the division is tougher now than it has been because Michigan is starting to handle its business. Michigan was not handling all of its business there for many years with the Ohio State game, losing games like this Penn State game. It's only gotten tougher. Yeah. So like you said, I don't think they've ever left. And I think it's a fantastic win, what should be really celebrated. Just a massive win in that game. That game means a lot to me, at least. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you that it's just not so black and white in the sport. There are gray areas, and you have to celebrate victories like that. Just like Tennessee, who you referenced there, should celebrate an Orange Bowl win,
Absolutely.
an 11-win season.
Absolutely.
Celebrate those things. Don't get caught up in just the negatives. Always strive for more, but don't let it negate a good season where you lost to literally 2 playoff teams.
Yeah, right. And Michigan, who's got some stuff that has just surfaced with these guys. So, and Harbaugh is saying he's going to come back, but every coach says he's going to come back.
Yeah.
Ohio State is going to be going forward without Stroud. Now, I'm not saying that there's nobody behind him. You just don't know. The conference could be yours next year. It could be.
It could be.
I don't know who they get at home. I don't know if they get Michigan or Ohio State at home. I don't remember. but it could be. As we land this plane, just a few minutes left. Happy for Mississippi State getting a bowl win. Sending. Gosh, I don't even know if that's the right way to say this, and I don't want to issue any kind of disrespect here, but that's sending Leach out.
Yeah.
Over a really good Illinois team.
Had to win that game. The fashion and they already had the game won when the debacle on the field took place at the end. But was that not such Mike Leach fashion with a crazy lateral across the field that gets scooped and scored on? So yeah, man, I'm so thrilled. That's really the only SEC team I'll root for in this bowl season outside Tennessee. Yeah. So yeah, so happy they did that. I think it's going to mean a lot for those players when the offseason is upon us, for everybody but TCU and Georgia already. If there is an offseason, it's already upon them. There's going to be a lot of reflection that's already happening too. I mean, they've already dealt with this loss, so it's only going to get more real from here. So happy that they at least had that win to remember this season by.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one more thing that I want to say. So if you've got anything else, you need to go throw it in there.
I believe I've said my piece.
Okay. Damar Hamlin. Reports are that he's doing better. And I just want to say this. If he never plays another down in the NFL again. So I don't know if you know this, but the NFL, I don't think you start to become vested in the NFL until year 4 or 5.
Right.
And I don't know if it's fully vested or partially vested. For players like this, for these kinds of cases where it's inevitable, where the player has no choice, where he's done, it's a health issue. Yeah. The NFL needs to do the right thing and said, we've got you.
Yeah.
We have you covered. We are going to make sure you never we're going to at least vest him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, give him the money that he's earned.
Absolutely.
I think I hear people say, well, you're dang right. They shouldn't be canceling, or they should be canceling the game. They should just cancel football. Okay. So it's a double-edged sword. Players are risking a lot. They are, but they're also making the decision to risk this. Okay. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that Damar, don't hear me say, you're saying he had that coming. No, I mean, you just don't know.
Exactly.
But he chose to take this risk. I'm not saying he deserved it. I'm saying because of he chose to break this risk on behalf of your brand, right?
Yes.
And the benefit of him, right? He's doing it. I mean, come on now. He wants it to be his job. But take care of the guy. Take care of him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do the right thing. Don't tell me money is an issue. You know what? And if you're gonna put it in the hands of the owners, because the owners are making 8-9 figures.
Yeah.
The Bills owner is not only the owner of the Bills, he's owner of some hockey team or something up there.
Exactly.
Take care of the guy.
Take care of him.
The NFL needs to say, if that happens, it is on behalf of the owner or somebody to make sure he's taken care of.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like this. I don't know if you saw this. The state of Tennessee has passed a law. I love this. That if you drive drunk and you kill because of your drunken drivingness, a mom or a dad who is the parent of a minor, you now have to pay child support until that child reaches 18. Hey,
that's fantastic.
I love that. It's basically saying, all right, owners, you're responsible. Okay, if XYZ happens, you have got to take care of this man. You've got
absolutely.
He has a family. He is a son. He is a dad. He is a brother. Take care of him.
100%.
That's all I got.
And listen, I will say this is a minor props to the NFL for this game not being resumed, not on Monday night in general, because that's a massive game between two Super Bowl contenders that will absolutely matter statistically in the standings. It will matter. That's a big game. Props to them for sidestepping their brand, their reputation, the money. Props to them. And again, it's minor. It's the right thing to do. I'm just glad you did it because Goodell, his reputation, it's a polarizing topic. I'm glad they made the right decision there, but absolutely take care of that man. And thank God that he's taking the steps and he's progressing as he is. Just a miracle.
Sure. And two things that, or two options that I want to say on behalf of the NFL, and I'll end with this because we're about 90 seconds. Either return the people their money who paid for that ticket, or take that money and send it to Hamlin's family.
There you go. Simple as that.
Take care of them, man. Hey, we love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for letting us tickle those ears. Michael's hair is still growing. I believe it's grown an inch since we started the episode. A solid inch. Hey, like, subscribe, tell your maws and your paws. Man, it's been quite a journey. I can't believe the college football season is almost to its end. But man, our numbers have grown from our start, and we just can't say thank you enough. Yes, we are still in conversations with sponsors. It's a little more difficult than I anticipated it to be. But anyway, those conversations are still being had at a slow basis because, holidays, things happen. But hey, we do this for free. We tickle your ears out of the kindness of our hearts. So at least follow us, at least subscribe, at least tell somebody. And if you don't, again, I say, you suck.
Simple as that.
You suck. Have a fantastic week. Enjoy the national championship. TCU against the world. God bless. No balls.
GBO.
Pandemonium Reigns.